Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in for this month's NHRD and Leadership Conversations. A very good afternoon to everybody. I'm Shivani. I'm a part of the NHRD and Young Talent Council and your host for the session today. Today, we are in conversation with two esteemed HR leaders on decoding essential skills for HR professionals in the age of AI and the modern workforce. Our first panelist for the conversation today is Dr. Geeta Kumar. Dr. Geeta is the founder and principal consultant at Pragati. She works closely with organizations and individuals on areas of org alignment, inclusion, diversity, equity, and access through a sustainability lens, research and advocacy, and coaching. Our second panelist, Kishan Keroli, is currently the Human Resources Director at Wipro Germany. As an HR partner for Wipro Germany, Kishan carries rich experience in areas of compensation and benefits, workforce integration, bench management, organization structure, and design and business partnering. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kishan and Dr. Geeta. We're very excited for our conversation.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Our pleasure. Before we enter the conversation itself, I just want to draw out the context of why we wanted to have this conversation as to what are even the changes that we are all facing at our workplaces. Within less than a year of the big announcement by OpenAI, GenAI has already transformed how we do all kinds of work, be it operational or creative. 2024 continues to be the hottest year in the world history, and there are hardly any parts of the world which have been left untouched by disruptive weather patterns due to climate change. A workforce which was barely getting used to being back in offices post the pandemic has had to pedal extra fast to meet the new business imperatives of expanding their Gen AI offerings. And finally, the pace and variety of these changes has also taken a toll on our mental health. While it's not all doom and gloom, despite what I've called out, these are changes that all HR practitioners are seeing affect the businesses and the colleagues that they partner with, which is why we thought it would be a worthwhile conversation to have. So, to begin with, I'd like to bring you in, Dr. Geeta. You consult across organizations. Perhaps give us a pulse of the state of the mind of corporate India's workforce that you're seeing in the face of all changes around us.
So Shivani, thank you so much and the YPC team for bringing such a topical conversation. I think frankly, for me, it's going to be very useful as there's so much to learn from all of you here and the audience questions. So really looking forward to that. As when you rightly said, we are in a phase probably never seen before. And if you look at the three variables, which is work, workplace, workforce, they're all rapidly and continuously evolving. And that's resulting also in a very dynamic cultural context. It's not like frozen earlier. Having said the scale, speed, pace, just like that, what you called out, this is actually a good place to be in, isn't it? It's a historic, momentous period and also a great opportunity for all of us to be part of a history, a tectonic shift is happening. And having said that, tipping points are places that provide an opportunity for transformation, for reimagining, for redefining, and recalibrating. That is also bringing space of hope, optimism, and it's actually a paradigm shift that we are experiencing nowadays. It's a huge leap forward into evolution. Uh, Look at the time span of every revolution. It's rapidly, shrinking. We had agriculture, we had industrial, we have automation, IT, and what we are right now is AI. It's an explosion. Technology, tech enablement has become a mainstay in every aspect of our life, more so at work. And it aims to simplify tasks with the objective of, increasing our overall efficiency, productivity. And yet it brings in its own set of ambiguity and uncertainties. And that manifests, and I think every one of us, more so for me, from my generation, I think I can clearly speak, this anxiety, the insecurity, the fears around change, questions around, can I do it? Questions around relevancy, upskilling, what next? Even efficacy are some of the overarching macro level organizational themes that people and organizations are grappling with, and individuals also at the micro realm. In a nutshell, it is not easy, especially from the people point of view, and that's where I consult. I'm working with people, so people point of view to deal with any change. When is actually a no-brainer. It's right there, it's staring us on our face. It is happening every moment, every day. It is the how that can make a difference to this transition. And I think that's broadly the landscape, Shivani, and the issues. So I'm sure we'll go deeper into this conversation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Geeta, for I think tempering the mood, calling out how it's also a time for optimism, right? Because we've never had tools such as this, and even if we do have crises such as never before, we have perhaps the technology to combat them. But and a very important point on looking at it as a change, as any other change and many changes that organizations go through. The how part is perhaps where the HR practitioners come in to guide and lead. Kishan, at this point, I'd want to bring you in. Working at Wipro, a major ITS organization, I can imagine that riding the wave of AI is at the heart of the business mission. But you're also curiously placed at Europe, and Europe, as we are seeing, has become a moral center for the world, literally, on all kinds of issues, legislations on climate change, privacy, and even on AI and antitrust to a large degree. So help us understand, perhaps from your perspective on both sides, right? That how are you seeing an org such as yours, so large, trying to bring, all its members together on the change towards an AI-led business model, one. And secondly, how is it also specifically playing out for you as you see within the European workforce? Because, that's perhaps where you just have the ringside view. So perhaps share that with us.
Sure, sure. Again, thank you. Thanks a lot for having us here. Thanks to Shivani, Gautam, and Akhilesh for nominating in this. It's a great forum to be, and it's good to discuss with young talent and understand more and learn this topic. As you know, it's very dynamic in nature. It's picking up pace, so there's a lot of learning that we'll all have as we go by. What I'll do is I'll answer this question in two phases. One, just to give an idea, you're actually right. Europe has always been in the center of all these global issues, right? And then on the legislations that you spoke, I'll just give you a version on what Europe is doing right now and then how Wipro is involved, right? As you all know, I think called out global issues that we have. Climate change. I'm sure all of you would have read about the EU emission trading system news, right? Where you want to be climate neutral by 2050. That's a big initiative. A lot of work happening around Europe. Wipro has also pledged for a 2040 neutral, climate neutral target. So we are achieving that. Under the privacy legislation, you all have heard of GDPR. It's taking big leap. In fact, as it goes, I'm sure it will be implemented all across. Europe has been forefront runner in this issue. It has very high strict norms to ensure that non-compliance is penalized, right? Then under AI legislation, which is more around, AI has not been new, right? I mean, you and I have been using the calculators from way back, but only what has changed is the calculator has now got connected to data and internet. And that's why it's becoming more and more difficult, and a lot of legislation needs to be brought in. I think it's about responsible AI. That's the topic that we have moved, right? Where there is transparency, there is accountability, and there is a way of preventing harm, right? And then moving to antitrust legislation, that's again an important aspect where we do not let multinational companies just monopolize, right? I mean, you want everybody to grow in a fair and should have a fair competition, right? Despite of all the challenges, again, I think it's not really easy. Legislation is easy to get formed, but when you implement on ground, you'll have a lot of challenges, and it'll hamper and suppress the innovation. So I think it's very important for us to balance those act. And just to give you a perspective. Now, coming to Wipro in this context, right? Wipro has taken a decision a year back to invest about 1 billion in the AI 360 tool that we have brought in. In fact, today I'm at Munich, and I have my CEO in Munich office today, and he was just telling us, right? He was the third person to actually take the AI certification in Wipro. So lead from the top, right? And then he was ensured that all the 230K employees across Wipro are taking, and he did question us. So that shows that commitment that we have in bringing AI, and we also believe that if our employees internally, we all are not well aware and prepared for it, what will we give our customers, right? So it's important to set your foundation, your house right before you go to the market. In order to do that, we have formed an AI governance team headed by Ivana. You all should Google her. She's an industry expert. We've hired her last year, and she's bringing a lot of initiatives around. We have a AI governance framework. A task force has been set within. People are trained and certified under it, which oversee the policies and processes. And then you must have heard of NIST AI risk management framework. We are already there. Wipro has registered. Wipro is part of the EU AI Pact, where we also are part of the council and board to give suggestions to make it happen. So this is what we are doing, and we'll talk more about how it can impact employees in the long run. But I think this is what I wanted to bring and what Wipro is taking a stand right now.
Sure. Thanks so much for sharing that, Kishan. I think it really gives context on, how business is moving towards these changes, tackling forces of legislation, governance, and the client needs, and how it's also taking an approach of taking people along, right? Making it a very people-specific change. And I think that's what's important for our conversation today also, that how do we enable and equip the people through this change. So before I move to the next question, just to call out to the participants on the call, we would like you to engage with the panelists. So after my next question, anybody who has a question, you can raise your hand. We'll call upon you, and you can ask the panelists your question. We want it to be as engaging and as interactive as possible. So do keep your questions, thoughts, reflections ready, and we'll come to you in a few minutes. So the next question I want to open up for both of your reflections, Dr. Geeta and Kishan, going deeper into this point, right, that it's also a people change. So help me perhaps understand, Kishan, we'll perhaps first start with you, and then Dr. Geeta, you, that, at the very execution down on the ODC where the changes are happening, so to say, what's the mindset, what's the mood, what are the top priorities for line managers, leaders, how are individual aspirations changing, with AI becoming such a central part of how we work? What are you gauging there? And then perhaps Dr. Geeta, if you'd like to come at it from what are the broader patterns that these reflect, and therefore what might HR professionals be mindful of when looking at these? So Kishan, over to you first.
Sure. Thank you for that. Good question. You're right. I think, again, I'll quote, whenever we go for any business meetings, any sales pitch, I think the customers have started asking us, Gen AI is the topic. What do you want to do next, right? In order to set that right, I think, as I said, the behavior within employees needs to change. So, of course, the certification is helping a lot of them, getting an understanding about what they do. As we move by, I think we want to ensure that, in fact, I'll go a step back, right? I mean, in order to do that, we've started implementing a lot of applications within Wipro, right? Where we are trying to tell employees that how productivity can be increased, and how a lot of tasks can be eliminated. Just to give you an example, we have these internal tools, right? I'll quote some of them. We call vNow, right? This is a Gen AI assistant, response to queries in Flow. So we started. Employees can log into the chat box. They can ask questions. They have a query on a policy. They ask questions, and they get their answers very quickly. Earlier, I think people used to reach out to the HR or search for the policies. So we're making things easy at within the organization for a sales pitch. Again, I think we have something called Elisa, right? What does Elisa do? I mean, whenever you have a customer who requests for an RFP, we put in the requirements and try generating an RFP response on its own, and then build further, and then reach out, right? I think this brings in a lot of behavioral changes. It gives you a lot of bandwidth, not to create something from the scratch, but to build further and add your innovative task and convert it. Again, the governance plays a very important role. As I said, I think garbage in, garbage out. I think very important that we are actually getting the data in the right format, right process. We have a lot of cross and checks so that we are feeding the right data for the output. So I think these are something that is changing from a behavior perspective. HRs will have to require understanding of technology. I think again, fundamentally, I think foundation is not going to change, right? Industrialization was there, IT is there, now AI is there. The hard skills like knowing the business, technology, and legal aspects of doing business in legal countries is very important known, right? And the softer aspects is how do I my adaptability, my resilience, my empathy will always remain, right? Broader aspect. What is changing is that learning technology for HRs becomes a very important, crucial at this point of time, because that's when you will appreciate what you have you're delivering to the customer and within, right? And then adaptability is another charter that I would like HRs to build. That's when you will be able to face the new tomorrow or the modern workplace. I hope I was able to answer the question. That's my view.
So this helps. Thank you, again for really contextualizing it in terms of what's happening and how it links up to the work we do. So this is definitely helpful. Dr. Geeta, your views also.
So, Kishan, yeah, I am aligned to whatever you say, but I think it's also important right now to address the elephant in the room. The biggest thing that's a lot which is happening, whether it's in social media, it's in across corridors, it's across water coolers, it's across even strategy meetings. What is AI going to do about jobs? Yeah, and will it take away our jobs? And that's a conversation that's happening across the board. Even I keep worrying about, am I going to be relevant anymore? What do I need to do? And it's happening. So let's go a little deeper and pick what lays behind that. There is this own fear, the fear of one's own well-being, especially in this phase of rapid change, and uh, can we unmute?
Dr. Shantanu, we'll request you to just be on mute. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I want to ask one question. Later on,
we'll
I'll
just,
ask you.
we'll let Dr. Geeta finish, and then you
Sure,
can
ma'am.
raise
Sure,
your
sure.
hand.
Sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. So coming back, the fear of is one's own well-being, whether it is mental, whether it's emotional, financial, if you don't have a job, how are you going to get food on the table? And physical. So at the existential level, it boils down to, do I really matter? Am I relevant anymore? And that's a deep one. And how can the smooth, successful transition is not, that will come later. But do I have it in me to make this transition? And I think a lot, and there are different spectrums across organizations. Some people are, raring to go. Some people are, even when you're giving them upskilling opportunities, it's not happening. So there's a deep fear. Not easy to settle with promotion incentive transfers. That's not going to work. It's questioning one's own identity that cannot be set right by systems policies, and that's the magnitude of the kind of change that we are encountering right now. So when it comes to the role of HR practitioners, absolutely what Kishan said, whether it's agility, whether it is adaptability, and he brings the complete nuts and bolts because he's doing this day in and day out. He's seeing what's happening, the good and the bad and the ugly of AI, whether it's ethics, whether it is trust. But if you look at it also from the HR role lens, and that's what I will provide, an outside in, because this is what I bring in terms of my facilitation, my consulting. While technology and AI are there to help us do our task better, faster, with precision and accuracy, it cannot take away the subjective reality, just like what Kishan said, we are needed here. People will be integral. The how is and what is also very important, which is going to be driven by people. It cannot also measure the pulse of people in their emotional, psychological realm. AI can't do that. And that's where we need HR practitioners. That's the biggest value add I feel HR can bring and needs to bring. How are employees experiencing? How are they feeling? How are they changing? How are they navigating? What are the expectations? And the expectations are moving, it's a moving target these days. There is mindset barriers. I think we should call that out. And that's where we would need to help. These are all subjective and it's not, can't be touched and felt. But that's the beauty of human engagement and what HR practitioners bring in the interaction. Irreplaceable. I would say it's priceless. If you look at the entire talent management cycle, there are so many things. I think Kishan would be better telling us how easy it has become with AI. But I think if you look at talent management strategy, the planning is still, you need heads, you need understanding of complexity. I think AI has huge advantages to analyze, slice, dice data. But how do you put data? The input is again, as Kishan called out, is important. The call to what needs to be done is definitely going to be present and future as of now. So AI has used potential also, if you look at it, the entire diversity, equity, inclusion lens that I work in the space, the inherent unconscious biases, this huge opportunity to bring fairness, transparency in the entire talent management cycle. So while we can implement good policies, prevent discrimination, pay parity, equal growth opportunities, the quality of mind of humans is, I'm saying again and again, I'll repeat it, is irreplaceable, especially in complex decision making. Employee relationship management, strategic thinking, specialized roles, these critical skills, they are going to be important. I think just allow me one more aspect. This is going to be fundamental to how organizations together transition, as a whole. There is this whole generational diversity, and that is going to be a big ticket item, especially for HR practitioners. We have 4 generations of people in the workforce. It's never happened in the history, sir, ever. And each generation is going to require different enablement since the challenges are very different. So we have digital natives to digital immigrants, and I'm somewhere completely like a novice, trying to find my way. So there are people like this, people whose jobs, livelihoods are likely to get disrupted with technology and, Gen AI. So their expectations are different, their skill levels are different, their learning abilities are different. And I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and she was saying, while companies are offering a lot of upskilling opportunities online, but the uptake seems to be also a challenge, because I think that match is something that, somebody has to do it. And I think that's where the role of HR practitioners come in. So HR going forward will have a proactive role in culture building, in matching and aligning expectations, in creating psychological safe workplaces, looking after well-being of teams that are so diverse and so spread out. Kishan is a standing example of, what kind of teams he's managing across. So, so the capacity to discriminate, take informed decision continues to be, I feel, as of now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm here to learn. And it's just the domain of human intelligence. If you look at the word itself, it is artificial intelligence. It's supporting us, our human intelligence.
Very
and I think that is something that it's, so that's broadly the dynamic landscape and an opportunity, I would say, as well as a challenge at the same time.
That's so true. Thank you for being so expansive on that, Dr. Geeta. Many points there to chew upon. I think to me, what's very interesting is that, up till now, we had even the kind of knowledge work that we were doing in many industries, tech included, had become fairly conveyor belt over the many years, right? It had become like fairly or factory model, where the individual perhaps didn't need to know the entire piece of what they were delivering upon, except you've had models like Agile, etc. But I feel like with the coming in of AI, you are again expected to see the big picture. You can't just focus on, okay, this is my area, because if it's so operational, then very soon that will just not be enough. And also to your other point, right? Like such a great example when you said that you might have upskilling initiatives, but then as HR professionals, we need to bring in our creativity to say what are the adequate incentives that drive somebody to upskill themselves, and they may not always be intrinsic. So how does one go about it? So thank you so much for covering all those aspects. I'll now request Sanjay Gupta. You've had your hand raised for very long. You can unmute yourself.
Right from the beginning, I saw.
Yeah. So please call out who you would want to answer this question as well, and you can ask your question. You're on mute, sir. You may want to unmute yourself.
Shivani, you could do it yourself if you're a host.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now I got this. So, I mean, and can be answered by anybody, of course. So, Kishan talked about data privacy, the risk also. Now, when we are living in the world of, AI, and it's primarily, 90% work is being done virtually. So, how do we protect our employees? Because if you look at the other side of the AI, which is like, deep fakes and misinformation and all that, how do we sensitize our people so that it is well known in terms of that something is not being harassed or something is not being misguided about it? How do we protect our employees, whether it need any kind of policy changes, what kind of sensitization is required when the new people join you in terms of orientation programs? So what kind of this kind of planned intervention will be required to meet these kind of challenges in the new environment that we have?
Sure. Thank you, Sanjay. Ms. Gita, can I pick this question? Thank you. So that's exactly the point, right? So I think the world is moving very fast. A couple of years back, we didn't know where all data are getting captured. Now that's happening. As soon as we started realizing what could this mean, right? How people could convert this, that's when this GDPR, the AI governance came into picture. And precisely Wipro is spending its maximum effort in educating employees that how important it is. In the name of transparency, you will not be able to go the extra mile, and it's important to get that governance, right? So we are spending a lot of money in the governance part of it, and that's why I said we have an AI task force, a framework created, a framework which is well defined with processes. And then we have this task force which is trained and certified, and they are taking this to internal employees, customers, and ensuring that what we feed in is absolutely maintained and is correct, right? Because what happened, I mean, whatever I know, let's say I went to a restaurant here, I like the food, or I didn't like the food, I just went and put it there, it got captured, and somebody else searched for it. Then the person is probably a non-vegetarian looking for some other thing, but I put my comments on the vegetarian, whereas the restaurant will have a good non-vegetarian food, just to give you an example, right? So that could get misinterpreted, and that's why it's important to have the data secured and govern it so that your output is better. That's how I see the governance taking a lot more importance today. If the foundation is built there, then we have a better tomorrow with better outputs that you require. That's how I
Thank you.
We have one more, we have two more individuals who've raised their hands. So Shubham Goyal, perhaps you could unmute yourself and go first.
Hi, thank you, team. Just wanted to ask, we are a couple of students here at IMI New Delhi, and we are attending the session. Just wanted to understand that there's a lot of talk about transitioning for the current HR leaders who are into workplaces, but for people like us who are beginning with their careers, with all the fluidity that is around, with new developments in AI and that it brings to the table, what kind of changes we can make to our directions right now at the very beginning, first. And second, I had the unique opportunity of interning at a manufacturing facility. And there I observed the organization transitioning from a generalized HR system to a center of expertise HR system. So is that a broad pattern that the industry might be following in the future years?
Shubham, who would you want to answer the question?
It could be any of the panelists. I'm good with.
Sure. Dr. Geeta, would you like to take a stab?
Yeah, so Shubham, I'm also an alum of IMI, so there's special things for you when you ask a question. So I think you're in a good space because I think you're all any which ways getting equipped. And the whole, as even Kishan mentioned, it's the mindset of, being able to adapt and the ability to learn at every given point. Frankly, when I say HR is not going to be traditional infrastructure systems policies are not what we are looking at anymore. So, when everything which is workplace, workforce is a moving target, Shubham, so that's the whole ability for you all to be fluid. I think you called that out yourself. The ability to be fluid is going to be a critical skill for an HR practitioner. I think that's not going away. And I think when you're looking at in terms of whether manufacturing or I think that's the future of every organization, every sector, globally. Even you look at how we are engaging on an everyday life, no, Shubham, what we used to do even 5 years ago. And you have Alexas and Siris and every which ways, there is an enablement. So I think there's no running away from it, and every organization is going to take a call on which is the best way to kind of integrate and make it so I think those are based on their requirements. But I think again very critical what Kishan has been pointing out, the input is something which is going to be so critical because everything is going to be embedded and dependent on that, and that's where the human skills, abilities, and the ability to think and look at complexities is going to be in I would say, irreplaceable requirement. I don't know whether I've answered it. Over to you, Kishan, if you can also,
No, I think you've covered. Again, I'll just go back and see if I could answer that a little further. Right. We have lived through the moments, right? Yeah, there was industrialization. HR had a couple of tasks there. I mean, I'm broadly putting, I'm trying to.
It was not even called HR. It was called I or a personnel manager.
Exactly,
When I started my
so,
career, it was personnel.
exactly true. So it was personnel management, payroll, hiring, firing, bookkeeping. That is what we lived. Then we moved to technology space where it evolved further, right? We got in the HRIS systems, right? And now it is the AI. AI is trying to revolutionize HR in terms of all the practices, right? And a predictive analysis to help you. So again, taking example, in earlier times, we were never even tracking attrition because there was no attrition. Right now in the industry era, I put a lot of effort building a presentation, collecting the data, presenting it to my leaders. Now, what will happen in the future? The AI will do this bit for me. It'll give me a summary on what my overall attrition is, what is my pain point. Now I can actually concentrate on addressing those aspects and ensure my attrition is curtailed or we end up retaining people. So I think in all this, we have always been evolving and it will continue. It will continue. Human beings are the most adaptable people in the world, and it will go on. Many challenges will come. Today it's AI. It could be tomorrow something else. I don't know what it is, but I'm just saying, I think our fundamentals will remain and we will evolve, and adaptability is the key for this. My submission.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kishan and Dr. Geeta, sorry, Kishan and Dr. Geeta for both stepping in. And I think, Shubham, what I'm also taking away from this very important question is that as a lot of the operational work we do is something we'll get supported by a lot of AI co-pilots. Perhaps we'll need to all build deeper skills around drawing out more meaningful insights, having critical thinking, and being able to look at creative solutions for a well-rounded employee experience. So I think what you said about centers of excellence, etc. There is also a tendency for that to be fractional and siloed. But we'll be called upon to look at a more holistic experience using our creativity and judgment. That's going to be, I feel like that's going to be a cool new area for everybody to start building skills along. We'll take one more question. Anurag Kumar, you could perhaps unmute and ask. Then I have a few of my own, and then we'll be back to your audience questions post that. So Anurag, you can go ahead.
Ma'am, like how AI is going to be used in the manufacturing industry for HR, because there's a lot of paperwork, lot of like the talent acquisition also, like they have to maintain the paperwork of every employee. There is not like paperless is not happening in the manufacturing industry. Like I had worked It's in COIL for my internship for 3 months. I'm a student pursuing my PGDM from Kirloskar Institute of Management, and I saw that like that is the like huge potential for AI to take that paperwork. So this is my question to like both of the panelists, like anyone can answer.
Okay. I'll attempt it, and then Dr. Ita, you can add further. The way I see it, I mean, even when I started working, I started my career with Infosys BPO, right? We had employee files that we were working on when I started my career. I used to spend 5 days sitting in just a record room when my audit is coming, right? We took a step further. We decided that we're going to ensure that we digitalize some these, right? And then once we hired a company, we got them all scanned, uploaded, then it became easy. So I'm not, I'm not an expert of manufacturing. I didn't get an opportunity to work with a manufacturing firm, but with the paper experience that you narrated, and I'm just trying to correlate my experience, say, I think there are ways where you could think of automating it. In fact, manufacturing has taken a big leap. I'm sure you've heard of this terminology called Industry 4.0, just-in-time materials type, right? When you have inventories running, when the inventory reaches a small size, then automatically the machine orders those inventories and your suppliers. So I think something like that could be leveraged, and AI is definitely taking a big leap. In fact, I heard a lot of Japanese companies believe in that just-in-time kind of thing, and that's how they automate and work. So a model from there you could understand further and replicate, which will help both the manufacturing side of it and the HR side of it. My view.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And I guess when I started my career, I started with a manufacturing company. It was a Japanese collaboration, Mitsubishi Motor Corporation. And we started implementing TQM. And one of the whole thing was JIT, just in time. So every equipment, everything, I mean, so that was technology, and that was cutting edge technology at that time. To answer you, Anurag, there will be a phase when you will have to transition between the physical and the automation. And it is a long process. And every organization will have to look at, appetites of being able to take that change, the time in which they require, the budget for that. So I guess every organization will be weighing that. When you say that it is a difficult task, no doubt. But I think that is a call which every organization will figure out in terms of the time scale, in terms of, as I said to you, the appetite, when and how much, what's the budget, and what's the capability of people to make that transition. So those are the calls, Anurag, which will actually, decide how an organization will transition. Hope that
Thank you, ma'am.
answers.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
I actually want to follow up a question on behalf of the student audience, who have joined us today. I think what I'm also hearing is that there might be many ideas they are gearing up to take to their organizations, internships, or as they join in full time. As seasoned leaders yourselves, you would also know that to get these ideas and changes to the right stakeholders itself can be a long, sometimes frustrating process. So what would be perhaps your, one point advice if you were to give anybody, from the student group going in with ideas for automation, making things smoother? How do they navigate a setup and, go in with optimism towards these changes? Because that itself can be quite difficult in certain contexts. So any word of advice to this group? Dr.
Okay.
Geeta, if you... Okay, go ahead, Kishore.
Okay, let me try taking that question. Okay. Okay, there are two things, behavior and mindset. I think both needs to work parallelly, right? Transitioning from relying on intuition and experience to making decision based on data and analytics is a crucial thing for me. I mean, that's how I put it across. From a mindset point of view, I think embrace the data. I mean, start believing in the data and appreciate that this is here to help me, and believe in it for taking decisions. Here's how I see. I think with these two, I think you will be able to navigate, is how I summarize it.
Okay, just adding that I think you wearing the hat of a solution orientation, go back with something which is, something. See, what happens is most leaders don't have the time or the energy. So the moment you bring it out as a problem, they listen and it will just get parked somewhere. While if you have something to say, then do it in a manner which will bring multiple options with multiple and the entire cost benefit analysis. Therefore, the decision becomes smart, faster. You get your spotlight, and I think there is a solution which will solve a problem for an organization. Shivani, if you may allow, I have a set of 7 questions for specifically for the student communities. Can I just put it on the chat? Probably these are good
Sure,
startings
absolutely.
for you all to start looking at yourself and preparing yourself. So I'm just going to post these questions and feel free to download it and start mulling and reflecting upon them.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel it's useful for all of us as folks who always need to keep learning. These are very valuable questions. But yeah, I think great takeaways that I'm also hearing from this: go in with a solution mindset. Kishan, as you said, go in equipped with the data, the cost benefit analysis, have a more robust proposal so that you're able to get buy-in. We've had a lot of questions around what we need to learn, what we need to support with. I also want to come in to ask, what is it that we will need to unlearn in terms of mindsets, behaviors, or even if you want to go into say that how we operate as different functions within the organization, or even like HR professionals across organizations. So what will we need to unlearn, to cope ourselves and also coach the organizations in coping with the changes? So Kishan, if you'd like to go first.
I feel that you have to start. I mean, today there's a lot of questions, right? Why should I believe AI? Where is the source coming from? How authentic is the source? We had some questions. I think the way I see it is, do challenge if the governance is in place. If the governance of the is in place and we are doing the right things, and then ensure, and when you ask questions to AI and you want to generate something and you want a solution, then start believing that what solution is coming is authentic and don't question it. I think that's what I mean. It will be very difficult for all of us to rely on something because we never had these things, right? I mean, we never had a platform where I could just ask a question and it would come. We always believed in people. Like today also, if I have a question in mind, I would run to a mentor. I would run to a mentor and say, hey, what do you think, Rajiv? What do you think, Bonam, right? Kind of thing, right? I mean, I believe in them because I know they'll give me solution. Today, what I want you all to believe is AI is tremendously useful. It's going to increase our productivity. Believe in it. Start start implementing those and take learnings from there is how I feel. If you unlearn that, I mean, that's my input to the audience.
That's, I think, very important, learning to trust. Dr. Geeta?
Nothing, just take the leap. There is no other way. And swim through it. You will fail. You just pick yourself up and learn. And that's the only way to get that mindset issue that Kishan talked about. It's only when you try it will that fear, not become bigger than who you are. And take the leap. We've done it everywhere, we're doing it in our workspaces. I mean, now you have everything, which is the Internet of Things, and even our homes are like that. So we've learned, we've done some trial and errors. I struggle, believe me, and my children who are also grown up and they're working professionally, they tell me, why don't you just intuitively fiddle around with some things, and then you'll find a way. And that's the only way, actually.
That's so
I
true.
have a question. I think I saw it in Mr. Nageshwar Rao. He's talked about hospitality. I mean, as of now, Mr. Rao, I'll just give you an example. In Europe, now the hotels have nobody on the reception. There are robots even in India who are serving and who are taking orders. So that's just a hint of what is in store. So it's not cast in stone that, there are certain sectors which are agnostic to interventions and what AI is going to do. They will make inroads in their own ways. So it's not, while right now they're very, very invested and people-centric, that is also likely to change. So I hope that answers your.
We have two more questions from the audience so far. Maybe we can go first with Dr. Shantanu. You've had your hand raised for a while. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. My question is for Dr. Geeta. I'm from the teaching fraternity and teaching HR analytics for our students. But what I observed that the management is quite resistant to change within the institution, which can hinder the adoption of AI in the curriculum. And above all, the diverse background of the students is also one of the biggest challenge. And the chat GPT, if you take the example of AI, we people are using 3.5. So we faculty, as a faculty, we are not fully versed with this. So what to do with how to convince people, as Geeta ma'am rightly said, those who are people centric, they are later or sooner they are going to take up such AI technologies in their existing business. But for the students, what should be done from the faculty side so that they can equipped with such kind of technologies? Yeah.
I hear you, Dr. Shantanu, in terms of
Yes, ma'am.
the management's resistance to change.
Yes, ma'am.
But there is that whole danger because if your change is inevitable and you miss
Exactly.
the boat actually, and I think probably that's something. See, it's only when the shoe pinches is when probably I mean, you can do whatever, as I said, you can go with the solution oriented, you can look at the cost benefit, you can tell what's happening.
Sorry, we just request those who don't have a question to keep themselves on mute, please. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, ma'am, please.
Yeah, so Dr. Shantanu, this is, I mean, inevitable. And I think the important thing is to ride the wave when it's happening rather than, it's being an afterthought. Well, as faculty, I think it's important, like what Kishan said, you have to learn. You will have to, take this whole thing also for yourself because the more confident you are, you would be able to offer it to your students as well. And,
And we
they
don't
can
feel
also
that. Yes,
Go
it's
ahead.
very correct. The limited access to this AI tools and technologies for hands-on learning might hindering the effective teaching learning process.
It depends from institute to institute, Shantanu. I mean, recently, not recently, it was almost a year ago. Some
Yeah.
students used Chat GPT to do the assignment, and they got
Yeah.
caught out. Turnitin.
Yeah,
So,
I know. We
that's
have
how
this
we would,
software.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we've always, I mean, for the last 10, 15 years, we've been using Turnitin for anti-plagiarism, check whether it is anything. So this now no one has there's no solution for Chat GPT as yet in the academic area, and this came out in because there were three students who submitted their assignments, and this was ditto. And they were called and said, you're going to get an F, so tell who's copied from whom. And they said, no, we've not copied from anyone, they just, and finally it all came down to this, that they've used Chat GPT and they used the same, they gave the same set of, the clues
Answers
and the
all
lead.
assignments.
Yeah, and that's what they got. So I think even in educational institution is going to, the entire education pattern itself is going through a change. Paperless for I think it's become a reality. I mean, there are no notebooks anymore in quite a few schools, especially in middle to senior schools now. Everything is
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that's the only way, Shantanu, if I answer that. I mean, we have to
I do
ride the
agree,
wave.
ma'am. I do agree. We have
ride the
to.
wave.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
So just
just-
add one line here.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I think you all have heard of this company called NVIDIA, right? I mean, and you have seen a tremendous growth for them, and they were the leaders. Why were they leaders? Because they started early. All that I would tell your management is if you do not take a leap of faith and start early, you will be left back in the race. So, I mean, that's philosophical, but I think that's the truth.
Yes. Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Shantanu, for your question.
thank you.
Rajlakshmi, you can go next. You can unmute yourself and ask.
Well, half of my question was answered with the previous question. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for organizing such a beautiful beautiful session. Yeah. My question is that I also belong to the education field, and with so many things like AI coming up, generative AI coming up and helping us out, and there are many things which it has done wonders. But when the things come to plagiarism, when the things come to AICTE rules and regulations, So there we are, the AI doesn't help us anymore. So what is your advice on this, that, how can AI be incorporated into the education field fraternity as such?
Rajlakshmi, would you have which speaker in mind you'd want to take the question?
Pardon?
Is there a specific speaker you'd want should take up this question?
No, anybody can answer, please.
Okay.
Okay, so Dr. Geeta, I'll request you to take this because I'm not aware. I mean, I've lost track of the Indian education
Academic,
system, been here for a little while, so I might not justify here. So I'll need your help.
Rajlakshmi, actually, you answered it in your question itself. So I just thinking, just relook at what you asked, and that's where the answer lies. That it is an evolving process. Everybody's not got it, and everybody's in a different journey and a different phase of, transition. I'm not sure whether you're in the postgraduate or undergraduate institution, educational institution.
It's a postgraduate institution.
Post-graduation. So I think that's just as I answered to Dr. Shantanu, there is, and I think even Keshav said that you would have to now learn to transition. There is no running. There's no going back actually. And that's the only way, and the only way is to be, moving, learning, those 6 questions probably, maybe you could go back and create something and go back to your institution and say, see, even our like you said, the AICTE, they all are actually still in a transition phase. So till they come with a product of implementation, I'm sure they're also having this internal conversation. How do they take this forward? Because no one wants to be left behind. And so
Very
I'm
true.
sure they're also putting things in place.
Yeah. My only worry is that when we are speaking about any manufacturing unit or any industry as such, the AI tools are utilized and used in a very enormous way, and they are accepted also throughout. But when we are talking, or when we are speaking of implementing the same tools in an educational institution, then there is a first thing which comes up is the plagiarism. And then, there are many other things which are followed by it. So neither the students are getting benefited, though they have been using, but then they are not completely getting benefited from these tools.
I agree. See, every change will have its vagaries. And
Sure.
yeah, we'll have to just work through it. And maybe this is a good opportunity, Rajlakshmi, for you all to put this as into policy advocacy, create a groundswell to get this thing moving.
Very true. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Sir, thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rajlakshmi. We have one final question from P. Nageshwar Rao. Nageshwar, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. This question for both Mr. Kishan and Geeta ma'am. You both have been for long, almost 2 decades in the HR as well as other fields. My question is, are you believe in the old processes, or are you believe in AI technology? Your use, I'm asking.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks.
So shall I take that?
Sure,
Interesting.
sure.
I think I did cover that, but I'll still tell you. I would say move along. And I don't think yes, was the old processes bad? No, absolutely no. Respect. Again, everything has a time lapse, right? So today, if we do not go the AI front, we will be left behind again. And I feel that AI is here to help you. And AI can do tremendously well. Just to give you an example, I'll just get this here. AI for operations, we have implemented. AI assistant reimbursements claim and all the medical assistance, 17% of our claims are processed without an agent. Okay, this is significantly reduced 80% of our agents' time for these processing. Earlier we used to have. So this gives me bandwidth for these guys to do something else, and for them also it has been a monotonous work of doing the same thing again and again. So that's eliminated, right? Again, just to give you an example, skill-based talent management, right? We have something called iAspire that we have implemented from 3 different point of view, right? One enables the associates, the managers, and the resource managers. For associates, how it helps, personalized recommendation of career paths, which was not applicable for us. We had to knock at somebody's door. Learning, okay, bridging the gap and saying, where do you lack? What is that you need to build on? And what are the trending skills? So that helps the associates. From a manager point of view, it helps manager build a strong team for execution. From a resource manager, he understands what are the skills and demands, and he can actually train people on those, which will make everybody very gainfully build in projects, right? So for me, I think AI is exciting. AI is where we should go. I think I'm loving this. There is a long way of how this can be converted. We all understand. Let's start early and be part of that journey and enjoy it. That's my submission.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that response, Kishan. I think what I'm also taking away from those examples is how AI is also making you more independent, right? Like you said, for so many things, you don't need to knock on doors. You're pretty much self-sufficient to take those ahead. We
Thank you,
have
Kishan.
we have one
And-
final question. If it's okay with the panelists, we'll just take perhaps 2 minutes more to take this. Himanshu, you can go ahead, ask your question, and call out which panelist you'd want to answer it.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to raise my question. I'm working with a manufacturing setup. The setup that I am working with is in a transition phase. And as a part of the transition phase, some of our employees are older time employees with the 25, 26 kind of years of experience. And some of them are with 5 to 10 years of experience. Employees in the 5, 10 years of experience are receptive to change, and they're ready to adopt AI and related improvements. But the other segment of employees are a little resistant to go for AI and seek assistance on the behalf of AI. So as an HR professional, what would you recommend as the right and the most suitable approach for this kind of a setup?
Can I go?
Sure,
Please.
sure.
So Himanshu, I think as I initially also brought out, it is a generational issue. You know, different generations are going to have different challenges in terms of transitioning through technology. And believe me, I'm extremely fearful even now. But I feel there is no other way. So while Kishan says he's super excited and always wanting to learn, for me, I have to force and push myself to get, you know, to the next level. So that is something that you will be experiencing. And I think there is an inherent fear to change, and that needs to be addressed. And if you can answer what is in it for me to them, you know, this question is actually what would make them, want to transition. Because if they're resistant to it, it's nothing, whatever you do, it's not going to work and it's not going to happen. So if you give them that hook or the carrot that it is something which will be beneficial to you, that's when they may be willing to take the bait. So you would have to have deeper conversation, and you would have to actually slice and dice these, people in terms of, where do they fall? Where is the issue? What kind of challenges? What are those inherent fears? The whole inherent fear for people with 25, 30 years of experience is the irrelevancy. And they feel, if they don't ride this wave, and if they feel they don't have the capability and the capacity to do it, this whole redundancy, and I think that needs to be addressed. It's not the technology or that skilling, it's that emotional fear that needs to be addressed here.
Also, just to extend, and well answered, ma'am, just to extend that question, answer a little further. If I was you, and believe me, I think very, very important question brought in, and big challenge, right? Not easy. I would categorize them into different age groups. And of course, the young talent, 5 years, I would give them the up-to-date kind of model. But for them, for those who are 30 years seasoned in the industry, I would actually customize it, talk to them about the advantage, why it is important at this point of time, break it down in such a way that they are able to understand, articulate. And also for you, it is a fantastic experience. As a HR, this is what we do with, right? How many times have you walked into a room and given an offer letter to somebody and said, hey, Kishan, I'm so happy, and he takes the offer? It never happens, right? Everybody wants more, whatever you offer, everybody wants one euro more than what you want, what you offer, right? So that's exactly the negotiation skills that we bring in, and how we deal with people. So I think you have the best job today of ensuring that you take your entire employees and your management to a different level, And this is my solutioning about breaking it and making it a little more easy for them to correlate, understand, and articulate the benefit for them, for you to implement this.
Thank you. Thank you for answering my question. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you so much, first to the audiences for all your questions. They've been very
Fantastic.
diverse. Yeah, very diverse, have really provoked thoughts, and we really hope it's been meaningful for you to learn from our panelists' really diverse and rich experiences. So thank you for joining in and being so engaged. Thanks a lot to our panelists, Dr. Geeta and Kishan, to bring in their own vulnerabilities about their own journey, to share so generously from their own experiences, and really helping the audience understand how they could navigate their own respective journeys with all that's changing. So thank you so much. Finally, this conversation has been brought to you by NHRDN, which is National Human Resource Development Network, established over 3 decades ago. And I'm underlining it because that's another important thing we want to highlight. We ourselves have changed and kept with the time. NHRDN is an autonomous, non-for-profit, professionally managed organization. It's a very cool network to be a part of. You can learn from a host of very accomplished HR professionals across the Indian industry, make use of the courses, certifications, engagements that we put out. So if learning such as this across formats interests you, we encourage you to become members of NHRDN. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. We hope it's been a thought-provoking Friday afternoon and that it's a great beginning to your weekend ahead. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you, Shivani.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
wonderful
Thank you.
audience.
Thank you, Dr.
We've had a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, Kishan. Lovely
Thank
to
you.
connect.
I look forward to meeting again.